The frozen ruins of Stalingrad, January 1943. The wind howls through shattered buildings like a dying scream. Snow falls on thousands of unburied corpses, turning the battlefield into a silent graveyard. The German Sixth Army is finished, encircled, starving, freezing. Soviet forces close in for the kill. Amid the chaos, one German soldier lies motionless in a shallow trench. Artillery shells have torn the earth apart. His comrades, assuming he is dead in the carnage, quickly scoop frozen dirt and snow over his body to give him a hasty grave before retreating or surrendering. They bury him alive. But this man is not dead. Trapped beneath layers of ice-hard soil, with dirt pressing against his face and chest, he claws desperately for air. His heart pounds. His lungs burn. In the pitch-black coffin of frozen earth, he fights the ultimate battle, not against the Red Army, but against suffocation and despair. This is the true horror of Stalingrad, a war so brutal that soldiers sometimes buried their own living brothers by mistake, and for at least one man, the grave became a second chance at life. Here is the cinematic story of survival against impossible odds in the bloodiest battle in human history. The Hell of Stalingrad, a city turned into a meat grinder. By late 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad had become Adolf Hitler's obsession and the Soviet Union's unbreakable stand. The German Sixth Army under General Friedrich Paulus had pushed deep into the city along the Volga River. House-to-house fighting turned every factory, apartment block, and street into a killing zone. Temperatures plunged to minus 30 degrees Celsius and lower. Soldiers on both sides suffered frostbite so severe that fingers and toes snapped off like brittle twigs. Hunger gnawed constantly. Men boiled leather belts, ate rats, and in the final weeks, some resorted to cannibalism. Disease spread like wildfire in the ruins. For the Germans, the nightmare intensified in November when Soviet Operation Uranus encircled the entire Sixth Army. Over 300,000 Axis troops were trapped. Supplies dwindled to almost nothing. Airdrops failed. By January 1943, the once proud army was reduced to skeletons in tattered uniforms, fighting with whatever ammunition remained. In this maelstrom, mistakes were inevitable. Artillery barrages and close-quarters combat left bodies mangled beyond recognition. Comrades had seconds to react before the next wave of Soviet infantry charged. In the panic and exhaustion, living men were sometimes mistaken for dead. The moment of burial, a fate worse than death. Imagine the scene. A young Wehrmacht soldier, let's call him Karl for the many anonymous accounts that echo this horror, collapses during a Soviet assault. Shrapnel has torn his uniform. Blood mixes with mud and snow. His breathing is shallow, his body numb from cold and shock. Nearby comrades under heavy fire check him quickly. No pulse they can feel in the chaos. No time for proper examination. "Er ist tot," one mutters. He is dead. With Soviet troops closing in, they drag his body into a shell crater or shallow foxhole. They scrape frozen earth, rubble, and snow over him. A hasty field burial to prevent the enemy from desecrating the corpse or to simply clear the position. The weight presses down. Darkness swallows him completely. For many, that would have been the end, but Karl was alive, barely conscious, lungs still drawing faint breaths. As the dirt compacted around him, panic surged. He could feel the crushing pressure on his chest. Every gasp pulled in more dust than air. His fingers, already frostbitten, clawed upward through the soil. Buried alive in Stalingrad was a nightmare repeated in variations across the battlefield. Accounts from German survivors describe similar incidents where wounded men were covered by collapsing trenches or hasty graves during retreats. The extreme cold slowed metabolism and breathing, making it tragically easy to mistake a severely injured but living man for a corpse. The fight for air, clawing back from the grave. Trapped beneath the earth, Karl's survival instinct took over. He pushed with everything he had left. His hands tore at the frozen layer above. Nails broke, skin ripped, but inch by inch he created space. The cold actually helped in one cruel way. It reduced his oxygen needs and kept panic from burning through his remaining strength too quickly. He heard muffled sounds above, distant explosions, shouts in Russian, the crunch of boots on snow. Soviet troops were moving through the area, perhaps even walking over his shallow grave. One wrong step or probe could have ended him. With superhuman effort, he broke through the surface. Gasping, coughing dirt from his lungs, he emerged like a ghost from the grave. Covered in filth, half-frozen, bleeding, he crawled toward any cover he could find, perhaps a ruined basement or another crater. After the escape, surviving the aftermath. Emerging from his living tomb did not end the ordeal. The Battle of Stalingrad officially ended on February 2, 1943, with the surrender of the remaining German forces. Over 91,000 Axis soldiers were taken prisoner. Most would never see home again. Only about 5,000 eventually returned after years in brutal Soviet camps. Starvation, typhus, and forced labor claimed the rest. For a man who had just clawed his way out of a grave, capture meant certain doom. Many who hid in cellars and ruins after the surrender faced summary execution or slow death in the open. Some small groups of Germans refused to surrender immediately and held out in pockets for days or even weeks, scavenging in the frozen ruins. If our survivor avoided immediate detection, he faced impossible choices: attempt a desperate breakout through Soviet lines in the dead of winter, hide among the corpses and rubble hoping for a miracle, or eventually give himself up when resistance became futile. The physical toll was immense. Frostbite likely claimed fingers or toes. Malnutrition weakened every organ. Psychological scars ran deeper. The trauma of suffocation, the guilt of surviving when comrades did not, the constant fear of being discovered and shot as a straggler. Yet some men did make it through. Scattered accounts from German veterans describe hiding in sewers, cellars, or under debris for days after the official surrender. A few were eventually found alive by Soviet forces and joined the long column of POWs. Others, incredibly rare, managed improbable escapes or were overlooked in the chaos of processing tens of thousands of prisoners. The broader horror: why Stalingrad buried so many alive. Stalingrad was not just a battle. It was industrialized death on a scale never seen before. Over 2 million people, soldiers and civilians, became casualties. Bodies piled so high in places that soldiers used them as sandbags or walked across them like frozen bridges. Hasty burials were common on both sides. Collapsing buildings, artillery, and tank tracks often buried men alive accidentally. The frozen ground made proper graves nearly impossible. Bodies were simply covered where they fell. In the final weeks, discipline broke down completely. Men too weak to move were left where they lay, sometimes still breathing. Soviet forces also suffered terribly. Many Red Army soldiers were buried under rubble during relentless German assaults earlier in the battle. The difference was resources. The Soviets could eventually reinforce and recover, while the trapped Germans could not. The real story, a testament to human will. The man who was buried alive in Stalingrad and survived represents the raw essence of the battle: endurance beyond reason. He was not a hero in the propaganda sense, just one more terrified, exhausted soldier caught in a war machine that devoured millions. His survival was not due to superior strategy or luck alone, but sheer animal refusal to die. In a place where every 7 seconds a German soldier dies, as Soviet loudspeakers reportedly broadcast, he beat the odds by clawing back from literal burial. Stories like his, pieced together from veteran testimonies, diaries, and post-war interviews, reveal the true face of Stalingrad. It was not glorious combat, but a frozen hell of mistakes, suffering, and improbable resilience. Many who died that winter were never found. A few, like this unknown soldier, refused the grave. Decades later, the Volga still flows past the rebuilt city, now Volgograd. Mass graves continue to yield bones and dog tags. Each discovery reminds us, in Stalingrad, the line between living and dead was thinner than a layer of frozen dirt. Outro. If you want more cinematic breakdowns of history's most harrowing true survival stories, the hidden horrors of famous battles, and the real accounts that still shock us today, make sure to like and subscribe. Because some graves refuse to keep their dead, and some men refuse to stay buried.